Remember The Simpsons? Come on, you know. The animated yellow-skinned family from the town of Springfield. There's Homer chugging a Duff beer, Bart riding his skateboard, Lisa playing on her saxophone, and Marge. Wait, it's still on the air? Yeah, you're right. The Simpsons is still churning along. Even though new episodes pretty much feel like rehashes of older ones, the show is now in its 30th season. 30 seasons for a sitcom, animated or not, is pretty much unheard of, so we have to give them credit for that. But what happened to our favorite TV family? The once beloved Simpsons is now referred to with eye rolls, groans, or quotes like, "Yeah, it used to be great," or "I haven't watched it in years." Oh! The downfall of the show is attributed to many factors, but their massive success in the 90s has led to a modern-day failure. And we'll show you exactly why. Before we dive into The Simpsons, click subscribe. You'll join our notification squad and be the first to know of new Screen Rant content. A show like The Simpsons couldn't be considered a modern-day failure without having a massive amount of success in the first place. And unless you lived through the prime of the 90s, it's almost hard to describe how quickly The Simpsons took over pop culture. Besides the Christmas special and debut episode airing in December of 1989, The Simpsons is truly a 90s show, and it grew and thrived throughout that decade. The show was a hit right out of the park, as early episodes focused on Bart Simpson as the central character, and he became the person used for a plethora of merchandising, including dozens of t-shirt designs. There were video games, cereals, Butterfinger promotions, stuffed animals, and action figures. Back in the early seasons, episodes were getting nearly 30 million viewers, which is unheard of in today's television culture. As the show grew throughout the early 90s, fans were drawn to the dumb-witted Homer, and while storylines revolved around every member of The Simpsons, he was often the central focus. Whether he was hanging out at Moe's, choking Bart at home, or using his now infamous catchphrase, "Oh!", it was often Homer providing the biggest laughs. A key part in the show's success was the world building of the town of Springfield. Despite it being animated, Springfield feels like a living city, thanks to the massive amount of characters and businesses in the town. There's Principal Skinner at Springfield Elementary, cable TV show staple Krusty the Clown, rich business owner Mr. Burns, and bumbling police chief Wiggum. The characters could pop in and out as needed, and the large list of citizens only seemed to grow each season. Back in the 90s, it was actually cool to watch The Simpsons. First Lady Barbara Bush denounced the show. Children were drawn to Bart's rebel behavior, and the comedy could push TV limits while still having a little heart at its core. Today's world of television is more cinematic and revered than ever, with high-quality shows like Game of Thrones and Stranger Things. But television in the 90s had a lot of quality as well. Sitcoms like Friends, Seinfeld, Everybody Loves Raymond, and Home Improvement were all classics and huge hits in their time. The Simpsons went through an era where every episode felt like a classic. Deep Space Homer follows his journey as he ventures out on a space mission and utilizes the lack of gravity in outer space to fly around and eat floating potato chips. The Season 3 episode Radio Bart has Bart pretend to be a young boy, trapped inside a well, with hilarious results. And then, of course, there's the Season 4 episode Mr. Plow, where Homer opens a successful snowplowing business until Barney, the Plow King, becomes his main competition. The Treehouse of Horror began a new Halloween tradition, including the landmark CG animation in Homer Cubed. So what happened to The Simpsons? As we transitioned into a new millennium, the show went well beyond 10 seasons, with each one feeling more watered down than the last. Basically, The Simpsons became an imitation of itself. Episodes would have flashes of brilliance and moments, but didn't have that same spark, that interest, or a must-see TV feelings as earlier seasons. Many mark the moment in 2001 after the debut of the 13th season as the beginning of the end, although some would say the decline began much earlier. After 10 seasons, there's only so many stories that you can tell with these characters. Random side plots with other characters may get shoehorned in, but no matter how many times one of Marge's sisters plans on getting married, the core of the show will always remain with the main Simpsons clan. Even though there have been flash-forward and flashback episodes, the characters do not age, limiting possible stories with Bart and Lisa's teenage years, or even Maggie entering kindergarten. Quotes like "Don't have a cow, man," and "Oh" are classics spread all over the globe, but even the characters who said them have worn out their welcome. Hearing Bart say "Ay caramba" today would feel like someone quoting the Budweiser "Wah commercials. Want to see Homer get fired from the nuclear power plant and the fallout from it? Well, No worries, because they've recycled that storyline at least 5 times in episodes like Girl Code, Burns Verkaufen der Kraftwerk, and Ice Cream of Margie with the light blue hair. Spoiler alert, Homer ends up back at the nuclear power plant every single time. Speaking of lost jobs, it seems like every time Krusty the Clown was in an episode, his show was either getting canceled or shut down only to come back again. Sideshow Bob's endless quest to kill Bart Simpson has even become redundant. What began with some dark humor and truly intense scenes has become a parody of itself. One of the biggest issues with the show became their reliance on guest stars. When The Simpsons features more celebrities than The Tonight Show, there's a problem. Often the guest stars hog up the storyline, and the only interesting part is seeing people like Bret the Hitman Hart or Drew Barrymore actually transformed into a Simpsons character. Just look at Season 12's 21 episodes. There are around 27 guest stars. Well, 31 if you count each individual of NSYNC, but who does that? Flash forward to Season 29 and the same trend occurs, as Ed Sheeran, Bill Hader, and Daniel Radcliffe are just a few among the many who lend voices to the show. The use of guest stars is often a way to create promos and teasers for the show, but their inclusions in episodes are typically unnecessary. It's basically a celebrity making fun of themselves and taking away from the core comedy. The surprise factor and excitement of seeing a celebrity on The Simpsons has only been watered down over the years. For example, look at Michael Jackson's surprise voiceover work in the Season 3 episode Stark Raving Dad. It made national headlines and sparked a ton of rumors when Jackson was credited as John J. Smith. Flash forward to Season 23 in the episode Lisa Goes Gaga. Featuring the biggest pop star of the time, Lady Gaga, the season finale episode garnered one of the show's lowest ratings of the season. Besides the celebrity guest stars, the show itself has tried all kinds of stunts to try and draw viewers back in. In recent years, there have been attention-grabbing headlines about Marge and Homer separating, a crossover episode with Family Guy, main characters getting killed off, and an episode where Homer spoke to viewers live on the air using some modern animation technology. They even transformed the characters into live-action Sesame Street-style puppets for a segment with Katy Perry in another gimmick episode. Once again, the show missed the point on why the viewers loved The Simpsons in the first place. If there was a highlight among these episodes, it would have to be The Simpsons Lego episode, which showed their creativity and flashes of brilliance, and they created an episode with long Lego animation sequences. So, if The Simpsons doesn't feel the same anymore, then how come shows like Friends are loved more than ever and viewed as national treasures? Well, simply put, they ended. Seinfeld finished at the top of its game after 9 seasons. Friends left on a strong note, and Everybody Loves Raymond went off the air before everybody ended up hating Raymond. The instant these shows ended, the nostalgia factor kicked in. Watching an episode of Friends now includes the intended comedy plus the nostalgia of what it was like to first experience the show. Because The Simpsons are still airing new episodes, the nostalgia factor is gone. We treat new episodes like any other show and judge them with face value. Those other shows are also wrapped up in the 90s bubble that they came from. The clothing, technology, music, and lifestyle are all representative of the era. The Simpsons has been forced to evolve over the years, and it's kind of hard for viewers to accept or want. We see characters with smartphones, references to modern technology, and jokes about the current culture. For example, in the Season 28 episode, Dad Behavior, Homer uses an app on his phone called Chore Monkey to hire people for various tasks around the house. And then there's the Season 27 episode, Girl Code, which features a plot where Lisa takes a computer coding class and helps come up with a social media app to prevent bad posts. Unfortunately, the nearly year-long process to create an episode leaves a lot of their gags and ideas a little hard to keep up with. Basically, The Simpsons feels like a middle-aged guy still trying to look cool and fit in with a group of 20-year-olds. It just doesn't work, and the show relies on new technology in an attempt to move stories forward. If the show had ended years ago, it may be even more loved today as fans have the ability to look back on the best episodes and instead of judging the modern and inferior seasons. The show did have a chance to go out on a high note, earn back fans, and end in a way we could all appreciate. When was this moment? With The Simpsons Movie. In development for many years, The Simpsons Movie could have been a disaster, but was everything fans wanted and needed at the time. Premiering between seasons 18 and 19, the movie features the story of Homer polluting Springfield and causing a whole glass dome to cover the town due to their overpopulation. The classic comedy, like Bart skateboarding naked, great gags, and plot, felt like the glory days again. Even when the movie drifted out of Springfield and into Alaska, there was still a lot of comedy, and the movie didn't just feel like a way too long episode of of the show. The movie itself should not have been just something shoved in the middle of the series' long run. It was the best way to cap the show in the biggest way possible. The movie was a box office success on its own, but imagine how much greater it could have been if it was the grand finale to it all. We may have even looked back at a few gems from season 16 or 17 and appreciated them even more now. Instead, the show trudged on to season 19, all but forgetting the great movie and allowing each new season to blend into the last without any defining moments. If the show did end after the movie, then the possibility of more movies could have been considered. Even annual television specials like a holiday special or Treehouse of Horror would have been better than doing full seasons of a show that people had already lost interest in. But alas, we do not have a time machine. The show just couldn't be stopped, and continued on for 10+ seasons after the Simpsons movie premiered. Another reason The Simpsons lost their luster? Competition from other animated series. Back in the 90s, it was pretty much unheard of for an animated show to be aimed at people above the age of 10. Sure, there was the risky and provocative Fritz the Cat movies, but those weren't nearly as mainstream as The Simpsons were. The Simpsons was a landmark show, and when a show like this has such a huge impact and following, there are bound to be other shows getting a piece of the pie. Sorry, Homer. And not surprisingly, The Simpsons has outlasted several of them. One of the earliest was CBS's Fish Police in 1992, which was canned faster than a group of sardines. Shows like Kevin Smith's animated Clerks, The Critic, and Father of the Bride were all quickly canceled, failing to capture any of The Simpsons' success. The 90s were pretty much all dominated by The Simpsons. It wasn't until the late 90s and early 2000s when some true competition came along. The Simpsons was often paired with other adult comedies like Eddie Murphy's The PJs, King of the Hill, and Matt Groening's second animated series, Futurama. In '97, Comedy Central really changed the game with South Park. The swearing and violence from Kenny, Stan, Kyle, and Cartman on South Park made Bart Simpson look like an angel. Because of the ability to air on basic cable, South Park pushed limits never seen before in animation. Fans were driven to the new show in droves, especially young teens who replaced Bart's "Don't have a cow, man" with Stan and Kyle's "Oh my god, they killed Kenny! You bastards!" South Park's ability to animate in-house and create episodes faster also made it more relevant for viewers. If something huge happened in the news, South Park had the ability to incorporate it into their show within just a week or two. Along with South Park, Fox's own Family Guy also brought some competition to The Simpsons. Even though they aired on the same network and often were paired back-to-back against each other, people couldn't help but compare Family Guy and The Simpsons. Just like when The Simpsons premiered, Family Guy was deemed fresh, shocking, and ushered in a whole new wave of animation. The comparisons of the show were natural. Both featured a suburban family with a son, daughter, and an infant. Although it's pretty safe to say Stewie is a far cry from Maggie. But there's also Homer and Peter, the dim-witted fathers who enjoy a beer at the pub more than staying at home with the family. Unfortunately for The Simpsons, the pacing, jokes, and fandom of Family Guy could not be stopped. Despite getting canceled twice by Fox, Family Guy came back each time, and the show felt fresher when compared to the long-running Simpsons. Of course, now in its 17th season, the show has almost the same comparisons and problems The Simpsons has gone through. Another factor in the fall of The Simpsons? Adult Swim. Cartoon Network changed the game when it comes to animation. Shows like Robot Chicken, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Adventure Time, and Rick and Morty appeal to people of all ages, especially former fans of The Simpsons. These shows are cool, they get spread on social media, and they've found a dedicated fan base. You can't isolate and critique a current episode of The Simpsons without these other shows in mind. The comparisons are only natural, and are another factor in The Simpsons' long decline over the years. The Simpsons is like the corporate enemy for these shows, no longer the underdog going up against live-action programming from the 90s. The new world of animation aims to be bigger and better than The Simpsons, making the show look tame in the process. The Simpsons started out as a rebel, but now they feel like the Empire. The odd part of it all? Many of these shows have actually animated openings and couch gags for The Simpsons. In the past few years, we've seen guest couch gags from Robot Chicken, Rick and Morty, and YouTube animator Steve Cutts. The Simpsons is basically giving a showcase to some of their main competition. If The Simpsons had called it quits, the show could be viewed as a legend who left at just the right time and opened the door for so many other animations to come in. Now the show feels like a 45-year-old NFL quarterback looking for one more great game, or a Kmart store desperately trying to keep customers while Amazon and Walmart dominate the field. You get the picture. And one of The Simpsons' biggest missed opportunities? The chance for a reboot. Shows that were popular back when The Simpsons first debuted are now making a comeback while The Simpsons still continues to air. Fans are flocking to shows shows like Roseanne, now reworked, as The Connors, Will and Grace, and MacGyver. If The Simpsons ended in even 2007 or 2008, the opportunity would be there for a reboot and a chance for fans to have a refreshing look at the show. The best part about The Simpsons is you don't need to worry about the voice cast aging or looking different. It's all animated. But The Simpsons missed that boat, are in their 30th season now, and any type of reboot or change would just feel redundant at this point. So, how will the legacy stand? Despite a whole decade of poorly received shows and seasons, The Simpsons will remain pop culture icons. Their popularity and scope in the world has gone way beyond just the show. At this point, the show is almost an afterthought compared to the whole Simpsons brand. Universal Studios has proved this in a big way, with a whole section of the theme park dedicated to The Simpsons and Springfield. Guests have the chance to visit real-life versions of Quickie Mart, Lard Lad Donuts, and Krusty Burger. Not to mention the area is home to 2 rides based off the show as well. One of the true areas where The Simpsons succeeds in the modern era is in the world of video games. Ever since 1991, the show has been churning out games for every format imaginable. While arcades still existed in the 90s, fans of the show could visit and play both the classic Simpsons arcade game and various forms of Simpsons pinball. Through the years, the Simpsons characters have gone through gaming adventures including bowling, wrestling, and Crazy Taxi-styled gaming. In 2007, The Simpsons game was released on multiple consoles and featured a great adventure with multiple playable characters. While the show failed to evolve to modern times, the games have done extremely well and still have a core fan base. The best example? The app game entitled Simpsons Tapped Out. Released in 2012, the game is still going strong with regular updates and ways for players to play. The initial download is free, but players are highly encouraged to make in-app purchases to help further themselves along. In all, EA Games has profited over $130 million from the game. Seemingly, more people are playing The Simpsons Tapped Out rather than watching new episodes of the show. So, what's next for The Simpsons? Well, a lot more episodes people aren't quite looking forward to. Now in its 30th seasons, the best part of this year will be all of the television specials and behind-the-scenes moments looking back on the fonder days of the series and the cultural impact it had. Thankfully for former viewers and Simpsons fanatics who watched during the 1990s, Fox has made it extremely easy to go back to past episodes. The Simpsons World app and website features every episode ever, which is pretty impressive in itself. As you browse, just don't mistake Season 29 for Season 9. You'll regret it. The HD quality allows you to enjoy episodes even more than you remembered, and the website also includes full scripts to read along with the show. No matter how good or bad the current quality of The Simpsons is, there is a ton of hard work that goes into creating 22 episodes every season, and The Simpsons World gives you a glimpse into this. Season 30 seems like a nice even number to go out on, but this will not be the case. Plans have already been announced for Season 31 and the 30th Treehouse of Horror episode. So far now, there seems to be no end in sight for The Simpsons' adventures in Springfield. For many of us, we've already said goodbye to the show a long time ago, but we can't help but wonder what they have in store for the very last episode. And we'll likely still tune in, hoping to get just a single flash of that 90s nostalgia. How has The Simpsons impacted your life? Do you still watch, or when did you stop watching? What could the show do to improve, or should it just finally end? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Screen Rant on YouTube so you can stay up to date with our awesome videos. Thanks a lot for watching.